Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we try to help parents simplify the college planning process. And I am here with Bobby Hood and Danna Sakabu, and we're going to talk today about college selection and fit. So, Donna, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristin and Bobby, for having me today.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
We're always excited about this topic because we like to talk about it quite a bit as well, and finding your place and finding your people. So we're excited to have you, Donna. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do for your day job besides being a Facebook Live star?
My day job is a job I love. I love helping families with all aspects of the college planning process, whether they are ninth grade families or it's fall of senior year, but figuring out what good fit schools are, how to figure out what majors they're looking at, and just that whole process and making it simplified, organized, and enjoyable.
And another thing I have to throw in, sorry, Bobby, is that Donna is very honed in on the financial piece of this too, which I love because all my viewers know that I'm very frugal. I talk about it all the time. So I love that you do that, Donna.
Thank you.
Bobby,
super important.
Oh, I just said this is wonderful because, obviously simplifying is what we're all about here. And so that's why we've decided to make all of the month of February on this topic. Donna's going to be here every week. And so those of you who are joining us every Wednesday, 11 a.m. through the month of February, come in, ask questions, and we'll be covering lots of different pieces of the college process. And so, yeah, Donna, why don't we just start in and tell us about this?
So, a lot of families get overwhelmed. They think, we need to start thinking about college, and then they put it aside. You have to start somewhere. So the first thing I talk to families about is fit, academic fit, social fit, financial fit. And, how do you figure that out? But I will say that financial fit is like the big undergirding that if a school doesn't fit the family's budget, it's not a dream school, it becomes a nightmare. So good to have those conversations early on. The other thing is it can be surprising that sometimes schools, they think, out of state, that won't fit our budget, or private. Sometimes they do. A good student can get good scholarships. So how do you figure out, okay, we need to visit schools. How do we do that? There are a lot of factors to consider. So I recommend sitting down as a family and talking about that. But don't talk about it every day. Pick one night a week, maybe Sunday night. Everybody's rested. The week hasn't started. The sports aren't going on, and talk about what's important. And so there are a lot of factors to consider.
Absolutely. I think a lot of families, they think that they're talking about it, but what they're talking about is, let's talk about how much you're going to love going to the school where I and your uncle and your brother and your, grandfather went.
Legacy. Right? Yes.
Right?
Yes. Oh, I hear that all the time. And whether I was in California or in Texas, I hear that all the time. And it's really about fit. That sometimes students are going to thrive at a smaller school or a different school and build their own legacy. And maybe when, Uncle Joe and Uncle Billy and Dad went to wherever, it was a lot easier to get into than it is now. And I think it's super important when families talk about colleges, when families visit schools, parents are going to come away with a completely different experience of that visit than their student. And it's good to compare notes, but parents, I caution you that you want to consider your student. If they're saying that this doesn't seem like a good fit for me, respect that. They may not be able to articulate exactly why. And you might be thinking, are you kidding? This is the bomb. I wish I could have gone here. But you have to check hold your tongue, bite your tongue, and don't be the parent on the tour that's asking all the questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, talk to us too, kind of where to start. So if they're thinking, sitting down, putting together the list, where do you even start?
Okay. So start with, ask the student, what size of school are you thinking about? They can be as small as 500 up to 50,000. The student might have some ideas. Sometimes it's good to have a mix of schools to and go and visit and see this is a small school. Sometimes small schools can be They think, oh, my high school is bigger than this. I shouldn't go to school like this. No, they can be a big fish in a small pond at a small school.
True.
Also, sometimes students want those big school experiences, the resources, the rah-rah school spirit. So talk about size, talk about location. Students might have a really good idea, like, I'm heading to the East Coast. And the parents might say, you're staying in state. So working through that, having those conversations, parents that just keep wanting to tell you, and I've lived through the experience as a parent. I think we all have kind of been down that journey or work with students to know, be open-minded to your student. And
Yeah, Donna, I mean, because they're the ones that have to live those 4 years plus,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes. So weather factors into that. Sometimes students want to be near the mountains or near the beach or far from home, and not the same climate. So that's important. Major, does it have the major they're looking for or thinking about? And then every school is going to offer different opportunities within a major. What kinds of opportunities are there? So you can find that on the website. Start with the school website. A lot of good information.
Here's one other thing I think on that topic too, Donna, is, when your kiddo is going in with some facts, like some have to haves and absolutely don't want to haves, guys, they just feel more centered, because I notice a lot of times, we are talking at them and saying, oh, you should. And instead just kind of going, what are your have to haves? What are your no goes? And that's at least facts that they can start building those blocks. And of course, I'm going to support you in picking a major first every time. So
key criteria for college. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bobby.
I was going to say one other thing. I think having these conversations is so important because we've all had students that we know who changed their mind, or they were pressed into going to college that they weren't happy with, or they just picked a college because it sounded good. And then they realize they don't fit there. And that's when suddenly you've got a student taking 5 or 6 years to graduate because they're transferring schools.
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of fit. But also, I think there's a trend happening the last couple of years, I think, where people are getting surprised that they're not getting accepted to the schools they thought they were going to. And schools they thought were locks are actually reach schools, and you're not getting accepted by everywhere you apply. It's not like the old days when you could just pick your, college and go just apply to it and go there. And so you need to know more options, right? You can't just say, this is my one school, right? You have to know some options and say, okay, put everything together. Here are 5 places I'd be okay with,
So having a balanced list is super important, and kind of keeping up with a way to see what's the most recent freshman profile. Google the name of the school, XYZ University, freshman profile 2022. And it may surprise you. I have families who go, oh my gosh, it's really changed. Yes. Even in the last 5 years, it's changed. And Bobby, you're the test prep expert, test optional versus test blind versus should I take the test? Yeah. There's a lot of things, but looking at the freshman profile will give you a clue, like, oh, yeah, I don't quite fit that profile. Doesn't mean you can't apply, but just know that. A balanced list is good. So schools that are likely schools where a student has a high probability of getting in, target, okay, all things considered fits the profile. Reach is okay. Sometimes they're looking for, the student might bring, geographic diversity or some other aspect the college is looking for. So having that balanced list is important. So there's not a lot of disappointment in the spring.
Absolutely. Oh, and another thing, you can't also just rely on what the adult remembers from 20 or 30 years ago, because, like, for instance, if I didn't know the research I've seen lately, if somebody started talking about engineering schools at MIT and, places like that, and RIT, I would have said, oh, that's kind of dominated. A lot of male students go there. And then the last few years, they're accepting equal amounts of women and men, but that also means that they're accepting a much higher percentage of the female applicants, right, than the male, because fewer females apply there. So females have a really high chance of getting into those engineering programs if they've got the credentials, because STEM areas needs female students. So, but if you just ask an adult, they're like, oh, only men go to MIT, and that's just not true anymore. So.
Yes. I call myself the myth buster.
Right.
And, and well-meaning people, parents will say, oh yeah, we have this friend and he did engineering at UW and it was this wonderful program. I go, yes, it has been, always has been, but the admit rate's 5% or whatever.
Right. It's so hard to
changed since 1985.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so factors like also, going to visit the campus and seeing, does this look like what I envision college as?
And does it feel right? Yeah. I told my oldest son, I'm like, when you walk on campus, you're just going to know. And of course I was the dummy. He's like, oh, Mom, come on.
Moms don't know. Yeah.
And it's funny because when he called me after he visited it, I wasn't able to go. And he goes, Mom, you were right. And I was like, oh, say it again. It's like, yeah, you were right. He goes, it's my place. So
yeah. And students do know, I will tell you, I've had students go to visit schools. They come back and go, I didn't like it at all. I go, time well spent.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But a campus visit, it just can, I highly encourage students to visit schools that maybe they haven't heard of, that maybe I'm recommending, or, someone else is recommending. A teacher might say, yeah, I really want you to go check out my school. And then they come back and go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you pushed me to do that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's another adult pushing that's a better thing than the parent, because students will shut down. We know that. Right. But go. And so when you visit, schedule a tour, official tour. Mm-hmm. And if you're going during spring break, do that now, because they do fill up at popular schools. The other thing is to go beyond the tour. Have lunch on campus, have coffee. This is my permission to eavesdrop. Listen in on conversations. Students are going to go, hey, are these my people or not? And then parents need to respect, like, whatever the factor is. Your student might say, I didn't like the trees on the campus. They may not be able to articulate really why they don't like it, but respect that, okay, sounds ridiculous, but that's what they're saying. It's fit. Also, I tell my students this all the time, if you go on a tour and they didn't take you into engineering or business or whatever that floats your boat that you're trying to see, go visit. If the door is unlocked, walk in.
Yes. And I think, Donna, a lot of times people forget that this is a business and that those people are there to help you. So you kind of get to try to do whatever you want to do.
Yes. Until they tell you don't come in here, just keep asking questions and walk in. And I would say, if let's say it's a business building, go to the office for the School of Business and say, hey, I'm here from Timbuktu. I'm my only chance to see the school. I'm interested in this. Is there anyone I can speak with? Oftentimes they'll pull an advisor or a faculty member, and you can just have this incredible experience of like, oh, wow, I would never have learned this had I not done this.
Absolutely.
You talked a little bit about social. Is there anything else that you want to say about the social side of it?
Social, like, are you looking for Greek life? Are you looking for that big rah-rah school spirit? Which I will tell you, it's not just at the big schools. It can D3 schools. There's some fierce support of D3 teams. And so it could be a smaller school where people get around that. Or it can be a student might not want any of that. But to look and see, like, are the things they're looking for? Is it community service? Is it study abroad? What kinds? They all have study abroad, but they're all different.
Yeah.
Do you want a single room in a residence hall? Is that possible as a freshman? Can you do that? Yeah. So some of them have triples and quads. So just know that you might not get your dream place to start, but like looking at all of those things. Another big part of a visit is going into the community. So you're doing all your campus visit, no more than 1 or 2 a day. It's overload beyond 2. Really, I recommend 1 if you can.
I agree.
About, checking off, okay, we visited 50 schools this week. It's about ascertaining fit, and that takes time. And so, is the town nearby, like, is it safe? Does it have charming things, like coffee shops, restaurants? Does your student like the outdoors? Do they want to go skiing or hiking or cycling or whatever? Can they do that? Or do they want to be in an urban setting?
Right.
You parent might not think, no way would I ever want to go to school in the heart of Boston, but your student might want to do that. So a lot of things to consider for sure.
Mhm.
I had a student one year who said to me, my most important factor is food. And I kind of went, honey, that's great. None of my resources to rate the food. So you're going to have to go and try out the food on campus.
Well,
But
that's great. And
important.
absolutely. And, and one of the things you talked about is, walking into the building, going in, talking to people, like going to the school that you want to attend and, asking the office and things like that. Those are things that are part of, demonstrated interest, right? Which is going to be the topic next week, right? So I think
Yes.
this kind of leads right into what we're going to be doing this whole month, right? Is kind of each of these things we need to think about. So I'm super excited about
I
all
am
of this.
too. There's a lot to talk about, and I just want families to start making plans and not put that off.
Yeah.
The more time you give yourself, the more enjoyable it is, and it's less stressful. And I think that's
Yeah.
all
I
of
mean,
our
if you
goal.
it's right now is the time, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you, Donna. And we will see you next week to talk about demonstrated interest. And I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. I'm
Absolutely.
looking forward to it as well.